Welcome. I'm going to be talking about resumes and interviews. My name is Vince Ritchie, and I'm preparing this presentation for the CLARE CRJ conference for returning jets. And a little bit about my background, briefly. My name is Vince. My last name is Ricci. I've been counseling and coaching applicants for graduate school since 2002. In the process of my daily work, I've created over 500 resumes. I've conducted over 750 interview sessions. In addition to my main counseling work, I serve as an adjunct professor, part-time lecturer at the University of Tokyo, where I'm teaching graduate engineering students some of the same skills I teach to my admissions counseling clients, which is how to think critically, how to present themselves on paper, how to create impressive documents, how to write effectively, and then how to present that information in the case of an interview or at the University of Tokyo at for example, at a conference or a poster session. It's a little bit about my background and why I'm here today. Also, before we proceed, I just want to thank the organizers of this event and the folks at CLARE for having me here. I've been doing this event now this is, I believe, my 8th time coming, and I really look forward to this event every year because I really enjoy doing this and I support the goals of the JET program. We're here today to talk about you and your future, and before that, we really need to I want to help you jump back and analyze the past and the present so that you can get a clear sense of a holistic view, how to present your story as a coherent whole, past, present, and future. The main way that we're going to be doing that is with the resume, and resume is an important document for self-presentation, and it's something that you can never spend too much time on your resume. I think a resume deserves as much time and attention as you can possibly give it. I have a metaphor for resumes that I like to think of them as a kind of an example of the Japanese art of bonsai, which, as you guys know, those of you who've been here in Japan, bonsai involves cutting down and trimming away until something looks refined and beautiful. But it takes time to trim down and trim down and trim down. So I'm going to give you 7 steps today to bonsification so that your resume can look like this. All right, step 1. When you're creating a resume, I suggest that you list everything you've done during and after college. This is just sort of a brainstorming of every single thing you could possibly put on the resume. Then, in step 2, you really need to focus on what's most important. And one way to help you focus is to write what's known as an objective. An objective looks like this. This is from the sample resume that's on my Jet Resumes blog. Experienced international educator seeks project management position at leading global university. So this helps the applicant focus, decide what to keep in the resume. And then in step 3, she's going to delete everything that doesn't help her realize her objective. So quick review here of the first 3 steps. Step 1, list everything, college and after. When I say everything, I mean jobs, sometimes part-time jobs, usually full-time jobs, sometimes college activities if they're significant, even hobbies and interests, everything you can think of that might be of use. Then write an objective that can help you focus. Here's an example. And then use that objective to help you narrow down. The ultimate goal with a resume is to have everything fit on a single page if possible. There are exceptions to every rule, but I think every one of us should be able to have a 1-page resume. We may also need a longer version. A good resume has 4 sections: contact information, professional information, education section, and additional information. Let's talk about each of those in more detail. For the contact information, my advice is to keep it simple. You don't need to list multiple mailing addresses, multiple email addresses, or multiple phone numbers. One of each is sufficient. Resume is valuable real estate. You don't want to waste space, basically. Also, you can send updates later if you've changed your if you've moved, for example, or you have a new phone number. It's easy enough to say, "Hi, I sent you my resume back a few months ago. Would love to hear from you. In the meantime, I wanted you to know I updated my contact information." But for now, on that single-page resume draft, when you're cutting away information, keep things clear and simple. Let's talk now in more detail, in much more detail, about the professional section, because it's the most important section of any resume. And also I want to find out from you guys who are watching this presentation if you're going for a full-time job or if you're trying to go to graduate school. Of course, if you're trying to go for work, then the professional section is the most important. For graduate school, it can be quite important depending on what kind of degree. If you're going for a professional degree, like an MBA, for example, a business degree, then professional section is very critical. So step 4, now back to our 7 steps. In the job section, the professional section, I want you to think about the work you've done in 2 ways, either as a responsibility or as an achievement, and I'll explain the difference. First of all, a responsibility is basically, in a nutshell, responsibilities are what you get paid to do. So this is the responsibilities section for an ALT, a jet who's an ALT. Selected to participate as only non-Japanese English teacher at public senior high school as member of one of Japan's largest cultural exchange programs run by 3 Japanese government ministries. So that's essentially an ALT's job. An achievement, on the other hand, is something that you do above and beyond your core job description, your basic responsibilities. Here's an achievement. This is from a CIR. Boosted attendance at international events by over 20%. Effectively managed staff to increase community presence of international affairs section. Now this is a good achievement because, first of all, it starts with a strong verb, boosted attendance at. It also includes a quantitative detail, 20%. There's a number. Numbers are good. And then, so we know what the CIR did, and then we learn how he did it. He did it by effectively managing staff to increase community presence of his section. Now, this wasn't his responsibility. This is something he did above and beyond his responsibility. This is how he added value beyond what others had done or what others necessarily expected him to do. And so I think it qualifies as an achievement. So going back to our 7 steps now, once you've whittled away a lot of material and boiled it down to decide what you want to include to achieve your objective, then you've divided up your responsibilities and achievements separately. Then you actually want to go back, and this is editing, to make the responsibility sound like an achievement. In other words, this is an ALT's job, but she's using good verbs, selected. So we know that not everybody gets the job. It's a selective position. It's competitive. She must be good. And she's using a qualifier, only. She's the only one doing what she does. And then another qualifier, one of the largest cultural exchange programs, and also it's run by 3 government ministries. So it's a significant position, in other words. It's just a casual, she's not a volunteer. She had to go through probably a complicated hiring and training process because this is an official position that's affiliated with the government. So it's a responsibility, but it still sounds impressive. Nothing on the resume should sound unimpressive or flat or boring. So that's step 5, to make every responsibility sound like an achievement. And here are some ways to do that. First, demonstrate results. You can see on the left what I call a tired description. Helped students improve their skills. Meh, I'm not impressed. On the other hand, hired, an exciting description says, coached first place student in Osaka Prefecture's high school English speech contest. So that's a result. It's showing me, not telling me. The one on the left is telling me. I help people do something. Great. The one on the right is actually showing me with results. The student got first place. Great, good job. You must be good at what you do, is what we think. It's what you want us to think, because you can get results for your students. Of course, Of course you improve their skills. How else would they have won first place, right? So show, don't tell. Demonstrate results. Another way is to show impact. Encourage cross-cultural communication with other countries. Again, that's flat, no detail, not exciting. Just telling me what you did. On the right, you're showing me with details. Initiated 80-student pen pal exchange program with a school in Mexico. Neat. So I know there's a bunch of students involved. I can imagine a school in Mexico and your school in Japan. So I'm really understanding what you're doing, and it's much more memorable. It's much more impressive. Other ways to make the professional section exciting and memorable and to basically make it a good piece of writing that's worthy of someone's time is to use what I call action verbs, which are also known as power verbs, which basically, in a nutshell, these are verbs that show skills because they're not typical flat, boring verbs, is, was, were, but they actually convey some kind of action. So evaluated demonstrates your analytical skills. Conceived or designed can demonstrate creative skills. If you want to show your management skills or management potential, you can use verbs like mentored or facilitated. And look, you may not be applying for a management job and you might not think that's what you want to do, but in a competitive job market like now, they're going to want to hire someone who's A, likely to stick around, and B, likely to be able to take initiative and show leadership so that they can move up to a higher position. Because it's expensive to hire people. And if they're going to hire you, they're going to hope that you're going to want to make an impact. So managing people is a great way to show your ability to make impacts. And finally, sales, negotiated and resolved. Now, you're working in the JET program. You're not selling things necessarily, but you can still demonstrate sales skills, which are basically interpersonal skills where you're negotiating or resolving conflicts with people. So sales skills are basically people skills, and we've all got sales skills to some extent. So you can use powerful verbs that convey the skills for your future job, even if your current job seems quite different. Another way to make a resume impressive is to add qualifiers. Qualifiers are words like first, youngest, only, and best. Here's an example of a way to use first. Created knowledge sharing system. You could say, if you wanted, created first ever knowledge sharing system. I took that out to make the bullet point more concise, but it conveys the first ever because you created it. If it existed before, how could you create it, right? So it's here in this example, first is implied. As for youngest, here we've got an actual use of the word youngest leader ever, right? That's impressive. Hard to prove, but if you can do a little research and prove it, you can say it. Youngest leader ever selected to spearhead. That, by the way, is my favorite action verb. Try to use spearhead in every resume at least once. I love that word. Don't overuse it, but use it. Try to use it once. It's just awesome. Visually, it's a stunning image, right? Very powerful. Spearhead team of 10 regional advisors serving more than 300 schools across Gifu Prefecture. Now, those outside Japan don't know across Gifu Prefecture. Is Gifu Prefecture the size of Texas, or is it the size of Rhode Island? In other words, how big is Gifu? Well, you're telling us here. A, it's in central Japan, so probably it's near Tokyo. And it's got a population of 2 million, which, you know, that's bigger than some, I think that's bigger than some U.S. states for sure. So even though it's not a super urban area, we're talking about a bunch of schools and an overall population that's pretty sizable. So it implies that you must be good because you're the youngest leader ever selected to spearhead that team. Only. Only is also good. The only one doing something. Here's an example. Revitalized English language program as only Japanese member on 6-person team. And finally, best. Again, best can be implied if you use examples that include getting awards or prizes. Any kind of special recognition implies that you're really good at what you do. And again, if you're not necessarily applying for another type of teaching position or CIR or PA type job, we can think about transferable skills. So being the best at what you do, being the best at anything implies ability, and that's always impressive. After the professional section, you're going to want to write an education section, and I'm saying after, but it depends. If you're trying to go to graduate school, I encourage my clients who are applying for graduate school to put education at the top, actually, because it's usually the first question an admissions officer will ask herself is, where did this person study? What did she study? And how well did she study? And if she didn't study a lot, what did she do? What did she spend her time with? Was she working full-time? Was she super active in community student activities? Was she volunteering? Did she play sports? What did she do with her time? So in the education section, you can include your grade point average if it was good. Good means 3.5 is a general rule. If your grade point average was 3.5 or above within your major, you could also list that. So you want to, if there's any kind of academic achievement, any impressive number or award for your thesis, or A average in your major, or anything like that, you want to include it. If you studied a hard science, sometimes 3.2 is considered good, but general rule of thumb, 3.5. If it's good, write it down. If it's not, don't worry about it. Just leave it off. It's not something you're trying to highlight. Again, a resume is highly selective. It's only the best of what you've done. Another good metaphor I like, other than bonsai for resumes, is if you're into music like I am, think of greatest hits compilation. It's like you don't need to, it's only the best, only the hit songs. It's a selective process. And also think about it as well, like with the greatest hits, it's not going to be 10 dance songs. If it's a band that has a lot of variety in their catalog, it's going to be a couple of slow songs, a couple of love songs, a couple of upbeat, dancey type songs, or rock and roll type beats, to show their breadth. If it's a band that really has a lot of, or a singer that has a lot of different styles. So a resume also is showing a breadth of activity, the best of everyone, the best of everything. So in the education, it's just the best you've got. Some education sections are long, some are really short. It all depends, but you've got to have one. So think about it. Finally, the extra section, the additional section, can be called different things. It can be called personal information or additional information. In resumes that I create, it usually just says additional, just one word, additional. It's a grab bag. It's everything else. And these can be conversation starters, fun hobbies. They can also be qualifications or certifications. If you're using your Japanese skill or language skills, try to show any kind of, again, like testing at a certain level. Add that information, and you can see good examples of additional sections in those sample resumes that I've uploaded here today, or that are uploaded elsewhere on this blog. All right, back to our 7 steps now. We're at step 6. Step 6 is to proofread, and a lot of people forget this step. And here's the best way I've ever heard for proofreading. Proofreading is, the best way to proofread is this. Record yourself reading every word at full volume, and then, obviously, listen to the recording. That's the best way. That's how I proofread these slides. I read them all, listened to myself, made sure there's not a single mistake, and this is something you should do at the end, step 6, and finally step 7, once you've proofread, be polite. Don't send, someone a resume full of spelling mistakes and basic obvious errors, but once you've done everything you can, including proofreading it, get some feedback. And get feedback from everyone and anyone who's willing to give you feedback, friends, family, and mentors. You can get feedback from me as well, but some conditions apply. First of all, I want you to follow all those 7 steps. Then I want you to email your resume to this email address. And I want you to do it by April 2nd, 2012. And the first 10 that they receive that follow the 7 steps and look good and looks like you've spent some decent time on it and meet the deadline, they will pass them to me, and I'll give you guys free help. This is what I do for a living, and my services I know what I'm doing, and I charge a lot for this service, but I'm willing to give you guys a little bit of free help if you can show good effort and work hard and get these done quickly. Time is of the essence here, folks. You're going to need to send your resume out early and send it out often and send it out repeatedly. So I'm trying to help those of you who are really organized get some insight and give you a head start in this whole process of figuring out what to do after JET. All right, let's talk now about the interview. I'll use another metaphor for interviews. Interviews, I think, are not about making bonsai trees. Interviews are about storytelling. And this is a book by my mentor, my guru of improv. When I studied at Stanford, Patricia Ryan Madsen was my teacher. And everything I learned at university that was valuable came from her, basically. I studied history, and no disrespect. Stanford has a fantastic history department, but I took more classes with Patricia than I did in history building because I just thought what she had to say was powerful, and I use her lessons every single day in what I do, and even with my family and with my son. I use improv tools all the time to help him with his English and his creativity. I just think this book is incredible, and I'm giving an unqualified plug for her book. I think it's in its 5th or 6th printing by now. It's been translated into Japanese, Korean, German. I think other languages are coming, and it's just a really nice, clear, simple distillation of a lot of really awesome stuff. So I use improv wisdom all the time in interviewing, and it frames the advice I'm going to give you now. These are my 5 interview tips. First, you need to, once you've made the resume, right, you need to interpret it. What I mean by that is, I don't mean translate it. On this blog, you can see great advice from a former student of mine. Actually, he was a student at the school where I taught. He was not in my class, but I met him years later. He had studied Japanese. He'd come and done the JET program as an ALT, then as a CIR, and then he came to the conference. He came up to me after the presentation and introduced himself, or reintroduced himself. He's all grown up now. He's back in the U.S. now in graduate school, but he has an incredible blog. He wrote a post on how to write a Japanese RICCI Japanese resume, and you can find it on this blog. His post, I posted with his permission, is fantastic. I think it's actually the most popular post, at least as of last time I checked, on this blog. And so hats off to Daniel for his hard work. But anyway, I'm not talking about translating your own resume necessarily if you're trying to work outside Japan. I'm saying interpret it, which means explain what it means. What I mean by that is tell the interviewer the reasons you've made the choices you've made. Interpret it and put your information and your story forward in a way that puts you in the best light and shows your logic and rationale for your decisions you've made. So this is what walk me through the resume can sound like. It's a common question that you'll hear at a lot of interviews. It's an opening question a lot of the time. And the logic I use is 2 columns, basically. You've got a column on the left here, what you chose, and then on the right, why you chose it. So the logic is essentially I chose my first position to learn a certain skill, skill 1. Then I changed my position to learn a new skill. I'm always learning. I love to learn. I love to grow. And then I chose my current job because it gave me the chance to synthesize or combine skill 1 and skill 2. So this is what it actually can look like, what you chose and what you learned. So let's take a look at an example of what this would sound like at an interview. If the interviewer says, walk me through your resume. You say, well, after university I chose to come to Japan on the JET program. I was an ALT, explain what an ALT is. I wanted to live out in the countryside. I'd studied academic Japanese, but I hadn't ever had the chance to use it on a daily basis. And so I knew I could teach English. At the same time, I knew I could get really killer Japanese ability if I was living outside of a major city. So I knew the JET program was likely to place me outside of a major urban area. And that's, in fact, what I did. I was out in the countryside and developed my teaching ability and also really, really improved my Japanese skills. Then I changed my position. I still liked the organization, but I wanted to play more of a cultural coordinator role. Using my Japanese, I started working with the local government, and I got a lot of experience organizing teams and executing projects. And now I'm working in Tokyo. I'm a translator, and I'm combining my Japanese ability, my team skills, and I'm actually organizing groups, and we're producing translations for hit video games. And that's a quick summary of my resume. I'd be happy to tell you more detail. So again, here's a quick summary. This is actually, I stole this from, again, I used Daniel's basic example here. and to give you a sense of how that works. Also, this is what it looks like in the mind of your interviewer. You're trying to give an impression that you're someone who's has a purpose, has a path, is moving forward, is trying to get somewhere, is using previous skills to build upon them. Your first position led to your second position, led to your current position, and everything is on an upward swing for you. It may not actually work out that way. In reality, life might be a bit more chaotic or unplanned, but it's up to you to put everything into a clear narrative and a clear story so that the interviewer comes away with a strong impression and hopefully with a job offer. So my second tip for interviews is tell stories that demonstrate awesome skills. Awesome skills are things like commitment, problem-solving ability, relationship building, and finally drive and the ability to get results, ambition, and results-oriented, goal-oriented. No matter what job or graduate school you're applying for, these are qualities that everyone wants in any student or any employee. So tell stories like this. Structure your stories with a clear beginning and middle and end. Here's a good storytelling template that I think is useful. First of all, start off by giving me a clear sense of your values. Who are you, and what's important to you? So I'm someone who loves to make the most of what I'm given. I love to be innovative. That's my general statement. I faced a problem at my school. My students weren't motivated to learn English. They didn't see the value. They didn't plan to leave Japan. They didn't really want to use English. They kind of felt shy and embarrassed. And I really was having a hard time motivating them. But the weather was changing. Spring was coming. I got permission and I brought my students out of the classroom and we implemented an outdoor language lab. Just being outside of a classroom environment kind of woke them up, and we had an outdoor language lab and they got really excited to see language and English in particular as being useful when describing the world around them. And finally, as a result, a few of the students got so motivated they decided to enter some speech contests. And even those who didn't enter the speech contests, they improved their ability and they got really excited. And in the end, they gave me a really good evaluation. So my evaluations were among the highest in my district, including the evaluations given to other ALTs. So I felt really proud. I'm glad the students gave me good marks, and I think it made a difference for them. And a few of them took it even farther and joined these speech contests. So I found a problem. I tried to help solve it, and I gained results. That's an easy template. Let me back that up a second and show you again overall what it looks like. So start with your value. I am, or I love, or I'm this kind of person. Maybe love's a little strong, but anyway, whatever. This is who I am. This is what I like to do. Here's an example. There was a problem. I took action and I got results. It's a pretty simple way to tell stories, and I think it's can be very effective. Again, and the values that you're showing in the beginning are things like commitment, problem solving, relationship building, drive, and results. So in my example, I was demonstrating problem solving ability. There was a problem, students weren't motivated. I motivated them. I was also trying to demonstrate drive and results, getting things done. So frame all of your stories in a simple, clear, and easy way that gives your listener a really clear sense of the purpose of the story. What does it all mean? My third tip for interviews is ask questions. Lots of interviewers will say at the end of the interview, well, that's all my questions. Would you like to ask me any questions? And I think the biggest mistake that an interviewee, an applicant, can make is to say no. I think this is a golden opportunity to ask questions. But there's a good way to ask questions, and there's, I think, a not so good way. The good way, I think, is to ask questions that are what I call open-ended. So a closed-ended question is a question that can be answered with a short yes or no. So you want to, for example, you want to ask your interviewer about leadership opportunities and growth potential, which is a good idea. But the way you ask it is you say, are first-year students able to make important decisions? It's close-ended. The person might just say, no, they're not. Or, yeah, they are. Or, sometimes, end of discussion. The point of these questions is to extend the dialogue, to leave a lasting impression, to have a friendly chat at the end of the interview. And that's that's what you're trying to do. And therefore, if that's your intention, I encourage you to ask what I call open-ended questions, which are more like this. In what ways can new hires get involved in decision making? So that allows the interviewer to give you a much more broad answer, and it's more likely to lead to an extended conversation, which is what you want. Tips 4 and 5, I'm coming to the end of my 5 tips here, and these are pretty, I think, common sense, but I'd be surprised, I'm constantly surprised that common sense is not common. Tip 4, show gratitude, which just means say thanks at the beginning and the end of the interview. Not over the top, but just straightforward and clear. You know, at the end of the interview, just say something like, you know, I really want to thank you for your time, and really appreciate this opportunity to meet with you and talk with you, and I've really confirmed my fit with this organization or this whatever, this school, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thanks again. Something like that. Just show gratitude. Start at the beginning as well. They say, hi, how are you today? Hi, I'm doing great. Really excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate this opportunity. Just say thank you. It's simple, but we forget how to do it. We're worried about our performance or how our tie looks or, you know, whatever. But just stay in the moment, stay present, say thanks. And finally, follow through. You know, again, quick email after the interview's over, or a handwritten note if you want. Thanks for meeting me. Really appreciate it. Short and sweet, not a long letter, just a short thanks. And then a month later, a few weeks later, whatever, persistently, consistently, stay in touch. Hi, enjoyed speaking with you 2 months ago. Wanted to see if that position's been filled or if another position is opened up. I still remain you know, very interested in your organization. Please let me know if there's any update. Thanks so much. You know, whatever. They stay in touch, follow through, don't just disappear. A lot of these hiring managers are super busy. They're getting flooded with resumes, and they just simply don't always have the time to follow up. But if they took the time to meet you at an interview, they're going to remember you. So it's up to you to stay in touch with them. And it's a fine art between being persistent and being annoying, but the worst thing of all is just to be completely silent. So you've got to find that comfort zone. All right, well that's a wrap on my slides. I've been going pretty quickly because I just wanted to get through these and put these online so you guys could see them either before or after my presentation, or those of you who are just stumbling across this blog, I hope you found these valuable as well, even if you're not in the JET program. Hopefully those tips are useful to anybody. And just to sum up, here's some resources. The blog, those of you watching this presentation know that already because that's where you are right now, I think, seeing these slides, jetresumes.blogspot.com. I've also put some videos online through YouTube that are useful for job applicant process, videos with sample interview answers, for example. But you know, focusing more on job interviews than admissions interviews, and those are gathered here at this URL, shortcut URL that I've got here listed on the screen. The third bullet point there are some links that I've assembled in a link social bookmarking system. I just collect whenever I see a good article or tips about resumes or interviews, cover letters as well. I didn't have time today to talk much about cover letters. There's some cover letter tips and samples on the Jet Resumes blog, and also some cover letter tips and links there on that links page. And finally, my main website for my admissions business is vinceprep.com, and that's the one I update more often. So a lot of that stuff is pretty specific to MBA admissions, but you'll also find some good tips on interviewing and resumes and other things like that that I hope you found valuable. So feel free to check out that as well. And finally, just a quick plug, if you found this information useful, I'm doing this pretty much as a volunteer just to help you out, so I would appreciate it if you found this valuable. Let me know, and the easiest way for you to let me know that you find this valuable is to like my Facebook page, which is linked at the bottom here of this blog post. So again, if you find this stuff useful, let me know, write a comment, and or like me on Facebook. That's another way to stay in touch with me, and I'll be posting updates throughout the year through Facebook. I also have a Twitter account. Anyway, feel free to stay in touch, and I wish you all the best of luck creating a great resume and getting an interview and passing the interview. I wish you all the very, very best with your future. Thanks again. Bye-bye.